Hello, here is the story of the tramp who became a famous poet. Many people know the poem Leisure from their school days. It is one of the most famous poems in the English language, and it was written by a man who was first a tramp and then a poet. His name is William Henry Davies, known as W H Davies. He was born in Newport in Wales in 1871. In 1893, when Davies was 22, he inherited a small sum of money from his grandmother. He went to America, where he lived a wild and tempestuous life. At this time, he wrote no poetry at all. He described himself in his famous autobiography as a super-tramp. His companions were other tramps who taught him many of the tricks of the trade, so to speak. Many of the tramps were thieves, but Davies did not resort to stealing. He did, however, on many occasions resort to begging. When Davies went to Michigan, he found that the prisons, for some extraordinary reason, were nearly empty. Davies and his fellow tramps discovered that some of the marshals were corrupt and were awarded taxpayers' money to help fill the prisons. Davies and other tramps got together and pretended to be drunk and rowdy in the Michigan streets. This was the marshal's excuse for arresting them. In this way, Davies and the other tramps had free board and lodging for many months. Davies heard that there was a gold rush in the Klondike region of Canada. He had no money to pay his way to Canada, so he attempted to jump a train as it was leaving the station. Unluckily, he missed his step and fell to the ground. He discovered that his right foot was severed from the ankle. Eventually, he was taken to hospital and his leg was amputated below the knee. He nearly died, but his vitality helped him to pull through. However, all his wildness had left him, and he decided to return to England. He came to London and was fitted with a wooden leg. He had £2 in his pocket from his grandmother's legacy, and he found shelter for 6pence a night in tramps' lodgings. Davies had always had an interest in poetry. As he tramped the countryside, he took a deep interest in country life and the many changing aspects of nature. No doubt this enthusiasm eventually led to the writing of his most famous poem, Leisure. But Davies' success did not come quickly. He wrote a number of poems which he decided to self-publish. He saved money from his small legacy to pay a printer and published the booklet which is called The Soul's Destroyer. He included a poem about disability. The poem is called The Fog and describes how a blind man helps a sighted man who cannot see his way because of the thick fog. I saw the fog grow thick, which soon made blind my ken. It made tall men of boys and giants of tall men. It clutched my throat, I coughed. Nothing was in my head except 2 heavy eyes like balls of burning lead. And when it grew so black that I could know no place, I lost all judgment then of distance and of space. The street lamps and the lights upon the halted cars could either be on earth or be the heavenly stars. A man passed by me close. I asked my way. He said, "Come, follow me, my friend." I followed where he led. He rapped the stones in front. "Trust me," he said, "and come." I followed like a child. A blind man led me home. Davies sent his booklet of poems to many famous people whose names he found in Who's Who. He asked people to pay £0.50 for the booklet if they wanted it. He managed to sell 60 booklets out of the 200 which he had published. One of the booklets came to the attention of the famous poet Edward Thomas. He could see Davies' potential, and he decided to help him. Thomas rented a tiny 2-room cottage for Davies near Thomas's own home in Sevenoaks, Kent. Davies worked on his life story, which he called The Autobiography of a Super Tramp. One of Davies' booklets of poems was sent to George Bernard Shaw. Shaw was impressed by the poems and wrote a preface to the booklet. When this was published, Davies' sales immediately increased enormously. After this attention from Edward Thomas and George Bernard Shaw and various newspaper critics, Davies' literary life began at last. However, his entry into London literary life was not entirely successful. Many well-known writers were kind to him, but some of them could not accept him as an insider. Joseph Conrad was particularly unfriendly towards Davies, who began to feel uneasy. The literary talk and literary gatherings did not really suit him. He was regarded by some as an outsider who had somehow jumped onto the celebrity bandwagon. Davies had particular difficulty trying to set up relationships with women in literary circles. He was not a sophisticated man. He was lonely and over the age of 50. During the evenings, he would wander down to Marble Arch, where he frequently met women who agreed to return with him to his lodgings in Great Russell Street. These women were not interested in his literary reputation, which they did not know about in any case. On one such evening at Marble Arch, Davies was approached by a young woman in her 20s. He raised his hat to her, as was his habit, because he believed in always behaving like a gentleman. He then saw that the girl was crying bitterly. He asked her what was wrong, and she stumbled out her sad story. She had been thrown out of her home by her parents, who had quarrelled with her, and she had nowhere to go. Davies suggested that she could come and live with him, and she agreed to do so. The girl's name was Helen. She was a simple, good-hearted girl who fitted in well with Davies' own character. There was no disturbance in their life together until on one terrible day Helen began screaming in pain. Davies quickly brought in his next-door neighbour to find out what was wrong. The neighbour was a middle-aged woman, and she saw immediately that Helen was having a miscarriage. A doctor came to treat her, and she nearly died. But she eventually recovered. Davies, of course, was extremely shocked at what had happened. Helen confessed to him that she had hidden her pregnancy from him because she had feared that he would not let her live with him. Helen had been engaged to a soldier who deserted her when she became pregnant. This was the reason that her family had thrown her out. Davies was fond of Helen, and he forgave her for deceiving him. Eventually, the two got married and went to live in the countryside, which Davies preferred to London. The couple had no children, but lived happily together. Davies worked on his poems, and he also prepared a manuscript which he called Young Emma. Emma was the name he used to refer to his wife, Helen. This gave details of his life in London, meeting women at Marble Arch, and eventually his meeting with Helen and his life with her. Davies submitted the manuscript to his publisher Jonathan Cape, but thinking about the matter, he realized that publication of intimate details would very much upset his wife, Helen. He withdrew the manuscript and asked the publisher to destroy any copies of the manuscript. Jonathan Cape, however, secretly retained a copy of the manuscript. Davies died in 1940, age 69. His wife outlived him until 1979. Davies' manuscript was then published as Young Emma, and it caused a sensation. I have set Davies' most popular poem, Leisure, to my own music, and I would like to sing it for you. What is this life, if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare, no time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows. No time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their food in grass. No time to see in broad daylight streams full of stars like skies at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet, how they can dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. A poor life this, if full of care. We have no time to stand and stare.